We move on to my boy, the Stompa. Now, I absolutely love the Stompa. A lot of the time, people look at the Stompas and they say he's unplayable. He's absolutely trash. And I say, you're probably playing a WTC. I understand and I feel bad for you because you don't have the glory of the Stompa, but the rest of us on GW terrain actually do. So a few things here is one, the mech tax. If you are ever using the mech, you understand that you are the Stompa, you're always using the mech. There's no way you're going to run him without it. He needs the extra +1 to hit. Nothing to argue here. Next thing is the Stompa is heavily reliant on CP. When I say heavily, I mean you must understand that you're going to at minimum use 2 CP on him every turn, if not 3, maybe even 4. Yeah, you can end up going off on him. Of course, I'm talking about Dread Mob. Now, what you're always going to do is one, Daka Daka to reroll the entire hit roll for him. You're going to choose sustain for him because you want all his weapons to get sustained because they're high value and sustained firepower. And 2, a lot of the time you're going to use big shells for bigger gets. Now, other options you might use. 1 is a CP reroll. Having a basic CP reroll in the bank for your Stompa is huge. It's huge because last thing you want to do is go 1 CP for Daka Daka, 1 CP for big shells for bigger gets. Roll my Def Cannon. 3 shots. Oh, that sucks. Okay, so the Def Cannon, even though it says 3d6, when you roll a CP, do a CP reroll stratagem, you don't have to roll only one of those d6 because the gun is simply all 3d6 of the shots, meaning it's not 3 individual guns that are each d6 shots. It's one big gun for 3d6 shots. It means 1 CP reroll means you get to reroll all 3 shots. So make sure you definitely keep that CP in the bank because you do not want your def cannon to fall short on the turn that you decide to actually go all in. The 4th CP you might end up using him for is actually for advancing and shooting. Now, because he can get assault and then he can reroll the advance, means you're going, hey, I'm going 10 with my Stompa. And then I'm possibly moving another 4 minimum because I'm in rerolling the advance, going off averages here, right? That means your Stompa can now move 14 inches. Your Stompa is roughly about 7 inches wide. That means you can actually start to clear about 6-inch worth of terrain pieces that are in the middle of terrain. He can move around. And he can actually touch. We look at his keywords. He has Titanic, Towering. That means he can simply walk up and touch terrain to look over it. When you are deploying the Stompa, which we will show you when we do the layout thing again, I would say a lot of the time you want to talk to your TO or the person you're playing with and go, hey, when I'm deploying this, are we using his big old arms to be in the deployment line or not? If we are, then that means I'm using them for line of fire. And if we're not, then he's much easier to deploy or not. Some people will say just argue this to your TO. Some would say play it as it is. As it is, you're a walker. He has to be within the deployment zone. And if people can actually gain line of fire from his arms, if they choose to, not make terms with you. Shout out to our sponsors, the Baron of Dice, as they helped us do our Waaaghtaktiks dice. So shout them out. Check them out in the description, 5% off in the discount because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Baron of Dice. They allow us to do our paint competition. So thank you very much to them. Next thing is Detachment. I always say just play Dread Mob. Of course, you can do Warhorde. Not really worth it. Seriously, tremendous shooting. When I say he's tremendous shooting, I'm saying 1 Def Storm Cannon when you invest 2 CP on him for reroll hits of big shells for bigger kits. Kills Canis Rex 9 out of 10 times, even if he rotates Iron Shield with the 6-up Feel No Pain, whatever. You can easily delete the disgustingly resilient Great Unclean one with the 4-up Feel No Pain with 3 guns from your Stompa. Pop rerolls to hit, pop big shells for bigger gets, choose sustain, and simply shoot your Death Storm Cannon, your Mega Rocket, and your Gatling gun. Your Gatling gun itself is wounding that boy on what is 4s now with flat damage 3, taking him to his 4-up. You're just throwing buckets of wounds into this guy. Even with this 4-up Feel No Pain, you're blending him in 1 activation of shooting. So if you're killing the Great Unclean one with the 4-up Feel No Pain, even if he's re-rolling saving throws of 1 with simply 3 guns from your 2 CP investment, just know you're standing up to just about anything in the game. How you choose to spread his guns really does matter because you can choose, I'm going to use the big Mega Rocket and the Gatling to shoot 1 Baby Knight, and I'm going to use his Death Storm Cannon to shoot another Baby Knight, whatever you may be. What I do always advise is to not shoot all of his guns, just shoot his 3 primary guns and don't take hazardous tests for the rest of them. It's simply not worth it. but do consider getting into location to charge, and we'll talk about that. He is playable on GW terrain. We'll talk about where we're going to stage him and how you would maybe move him up the field in a second when I look at the layouts. Transport. He does have a 22 transport capacity. You can put a fat old unit of Grots inside of him. 80 points, throw fat unit of Grots in him. They're not participating in the game. You're not really worried about those points. They're not getting shot and chipped away. And then as you come to either throw him up to the middle of the table or start to play for the primary later in the game once he's deleted stuff, big old brick of Grots get out. Try to take an objective. If you're worried about actually getting charged, big old brick of Grots get out and they can reactive move and people try to get closer to your Stompa and try to stop off a charge possibly. So take advantage of his transport capability sometimes. If you're scared of your mech getting killed, he can go inside there, pop out after the Stompa moves and give you +1 to hit. Totally fine. Tip for the Stompa: control the space around your Stompa. This is the thing I always advise to everybody on the Discord, everybody that I talk to about Stompas when they talk about my Stompa died. So my last 2 points go in tandem, right? Your Stompa is most likely to die at the 24-inch range or closer, or in combat. So a lot of the time people go, hey man, I don't want to take my Stompa because I'm scared to get alpha struck. You know what I'm saying? Like that Lehman Russ exterminator is going to destroy you. That Lehman Russ is going to destroy you anyways, bro. You don't play the Stompa based off one exception or one unit that can just gunline you off the other side of the table, right? When I took my Stompa Max Cans list to the RTT this last weekend, I didn't go, well, you know, there's a Tau player there and he's in a rail cannon. He can't use my Stompa. I just looked at him and go, I hope I don't line up with you, bro. And if I do, whatever. That's just the way of the game, right? Then you pay attention to the things we talked about earlier and you hope he goes for the Morkanot, right? Hope he goes for the Morkanot at Twitch. So when you're playing the Stompa, you can't look at what's going to shoot me away at turn 1 from the other side of the table. If that's the case, then you're playing Stompa anyways. You shouldn't really care. We're talking about, you know, control the terms you can control, which is controlling the space around the Stompa and understanding your actual danger range is within 24 inches, right? A sleeper unit that kills Stompas sometimes are, let's say, a Gladius, critical 5+, Hellblaster unit, ignoring cover, and getting sustained lethals and doing, of course, Oath of Moment. That's something within 24 inches that can blow away a Stompa. But that's a very particular type of unit. For the most part, you're thinking of Eradicators. You're thinking of a Soul Forge packed gun line of Chaos Marines, stuff like that. So if you're looking for mid-range potential, now these are things you can interact with. You can take big bricks of Grots to charge them. You can take Zod, Rot Wartsnaga to actually get in the way of melee units if it's a big unit of Exalted 8-pound. If it's Angron, you can take Zod, utilize his reactionary move, and block those guys in so they can get into combat with your Stompa. That's where, when you're playing with your Stompa, understand that you can use Storm Boys, Shock Jump Dragstas, a Snickra, maybe a Commando, even though not really Commandos because they're really expensive. Unit of basic boys, like we talked about, the transport capabilities, other units of basic Grots. Anything you can to just move up the field and not allow enemies to, 1, stage in small L pieces of terrain and countercharge you. 2, not come in from reserve and simply throw Eradicator bombs into you is 2. And then 3, understanding that you still have to play the mission. Therefore, the other stuff on your list that are alongside your Stompa should be going forward and trying to score you points. If you simply bring all guns, either you're playing on a bowling ball terrain setup, which is fine. Good job, you brought the Stompa. But 2 is that you're going to end up getting overwhelmed by enemies that can pressure you, and you're not going to get enough lines of fire. Sometimes these shooting units that you want to bring for orcs all require CP investment, and then you start going, where do I spend my CP on? I can't get reliable outcomes on these units because they all want CP and my Stomp is eating it all. So you want to bring units that don't care about CP. I highly advise the Flash Kits because they work in any detachment without CP investment. I advise Storm Boys because they can disembark from transports and run around the field and advance and charge little skirmish units. I advise Bikers and Buggies because they have moderate durability profiles per unit. And they have the data sheet ability, like the Shock Jump Dragster, to just jump into locations so the enemies can't drop in within range of you. And then just a booty load of Grots. When I bring my Stompa, I bring a booty load of Grots, right? So just understand your Stompa's threat range and understand what's actually more likely to kill him. Just know if you're getting gunline from across the table, stuff just happens, So here's going to be the example I feel like using for the Stompa, because everybody likes to talk gloom and gloom. So I want to use something that's a little gloomy. So here we have layout 8. Yes, layout 8 with Crucible of Battle. This is arguably one of the worst deployments for the Stompa / any kind of shooting army. But guess what? I was playing layout 8 with the RTT with my Stompa. So I actually have some takeaways here. Now, one thing to consider when you're playing with the Stompa on this list is these. Make sure I can actually write on this before I start touching stuff. Yes. Can you guys see this? Yes, you can. Okay. Nope, I did it again. I'm gonna get this, guys. Don't worry. Making sure I can do this. Oh, that's what it was asking me. There it goes. Okay. One thing to really pay attention to when you're playing the Stompa or any type of layout 8, something you got to pay attention to is these L-shaped ruins, right? This is where you really want your grots to really come into play, or even storm boys. So in this game, one, of course, I would say grots are going to have to go up here to really come up and either reactionary move or line up the outside of this building so enemies can't jump out and stage to charge you. Because what you're going to be doing in this layout, or what I did, is trying to take the Stompa and run him through the middle of the table. Now, the layout I actually played on, they ended up having the L-shaped rune like this, which ended up playing a little bit of a difference for me here. But some people either have this one L the other way or L this way. Every terrain, location where you're at, it's based off a little bit different. But what you're going to do is try to find the hole, because the Stompa, either he can Stompa can go here, or if he's going to have to go, because he's about 7 inches wide, these are about 4 inches. So the Stompa could hypothetically fit and go through here, because he does have enough room to through there. Point is, when I played this layout, everything right here in the middle is able for the Stompa to get through. Now, it is determinant based off what your terrain's going to have. They're going to have like a little piece of rune, or if these going to be actual cargo containers. That does different person by person. Even if it is cargo containers, you can run up and touch these because you're going to look over them and shoot them. The point of this objective when you have the Stompa is, one, if you can stage up and look over any of these terrain pieces, right? If you can look and tag this, anything on this stage, you can get tremendous line of fire to shoot everything. And you're going to want to cut the table in half here, because that's why the Stompers, the grots, are going to come to the bottom, right? Or two, you're going to be advancing and shooting, because you have the Stompa, to try to actually get off across the middle of the battlefield. Easier said than done, but understand you can actually use advance, assault, and shoot, so you can kind of wiggle with 14 inches of movement. A lot of you guys are going, well, I can't do this. If you play on WTC, you can't do this. But if you play at a local game store, if you play at a normal RTT, you will know based off your normal events which one of these could do. And mind you, this is the absolute worst layout for shooting and the Stompa that I chose to use for this example, because even in that worst example, you should understand your strengths and your weaknesses. Your strengths are, you simply have to tag something and you can shoot everything, right? If I can stage up through here, tag right here, then I can shoot. I have open line of fire to all of this part of the game now. I guess not if someone staged up right behind me here, right? But I have open line of fire to most of the game now, so the rest of my grots can interact and participate in the game. Like I said, your grots are going to come up here, right? And this mission is beautiful for something like a Zagrot Waaaghtaktiks to go up and stage in this terrain, fill up this terrain, and threaten your enemy's home deployment zone. So you can have your Zod come over here, you can have your Stompa come up in here. Of course, it's some of your army, but now you've actually controlled all of this part of the table, and everything else can swarm the middle. You can control your home objective and your northern objective, and still kind of get all your shots downfield. Just know when you're playing the Stompa, you shouldn't sweat the game too much. Just know it's obviously going to have weaknesses. It's up to you to dictate and control your terms of engagement when you're playing with the Stompa. But I do strongly advise giving it a shot. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!